I couldn't agree with you more. Can you imagine? Think about it. When we were enslaved, one of the primary ways they were able to maintain domination was to separate the husband and wife. I'm going to sell this, sell this plantation, sell this one, then sell the kids. You see, and then they would rape the women in front of the husband, and then he could not protect. You see, so this was and all sorts of challenging and difficult treatment we underwent. Depraved. And then you keep doing that over and over and over and over again. You do something to the mind. And so in terms of Black men, they were studded, right? We were breeders. They were studs. So even if they had an emotional attachment to a woman, you're a studder. You're not, you can't, they made sure, divide and conquer. This was inculcated into us over generations. Not only that, the society, the economic structure of society made sure that at some point, Black men could really have a living wage to be able to take care of a family. And so that's when you had the proliferation of prisons, because there had to be a plan for that. Right? And then you allow Black women to welfare roles, right? So you replace the man with government funding. I mean, that's while the jails are growing and filled with men.
But should there be a level of consciousness around this? If we are to heal from this situation, I mean, we're talking about what has happened to us as a race over time.
Right.
But guess what? We're the ones that are going to have to shift. The society's not going to change to suit us. So what is it internally that we need to do? Because sometimes I feel that my brothers are sometimes on automatic pilot. It's like they're not understanding the way the system is set up. We're choosing at some point, do we not choose to be in conflict with you? I mean, at some point, can we wake up and see what this game is and use it in a way that empowers and moves us forward?
I couldn't agree with you more. This is what you're talking about is personal accountability. At what point do we decide? Do we stop and say, hey, why are things the way they are? Why is there a chasm between men and women? Why? And how am I participating in it?
When I look my own family influences and you trace it back. So if the feeling, if you, and this goes back to, when you talk about psychological autonomy, to be free, you have to recognize your feelings as well as your thoughts and own them and so forth and have perspective. But if you can't feel, how do you get to the point where you start to question, is there another way?
Oh, wow. I always say, if you don't know how you feel, you don't know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you can't proceed in this life. Right. So, yes, how do we do that? I advocate, that's one thing that we don't necessarily do. Really talk. What do I mean? I mean, talk about what happened to you. Because if you're not raised in a family, for instance, that understand and make space for you to express your feelings and for them to hold your feelings so that you can process them, you will not be able to articulate your feelings. You won't even, there's a barrier there. Right. So a skillful practice will be able to help you.
Right.
Give you the language for feelings, but that will come through talking. What happened?
I think that so many of us don't take the time still to think about what's happened, to think about our feelings, to understand that a disconnection from feelings is one of the things that happens when trauma comes into your life. When you've experienced trauma, you focus on the threat as opposed to what you're feeling. So to really start thinking about feelings, one of the things I ask myself all the time, how am I feeling now? It's what gets me centered, in touch with myself, what I'm feeling, being reflective. Why did I feel that way? Why did I respond to something in a certain way? This practice helps to keep me centered, to understand who I am, what I bring to the world, appreciate it. It also helps me to get centered when I'm getting messages from all over the place as to who I am. It makes me more knowing who I am. It helps me not to be triggered as quickly as I might otherwise have been.
As I'm listening to this conversation, so much of what, having grown up in a different country, having lived here now since 2000, so much of what I see my Black brothers and sisters are grappling with is the fact that over 80% of their function is informed by fear. And so when you are functioning every day and make decisions on a calculated fear, you don't even know, but you're just fearful. So you're going to be like, I'm going to hold a car like this. I ain't doing nothing, or I'm not going to walk in that store. I'm just going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to try. Everything is fear.
Afraid of examining the feelings, because that's
right. So coupled with that, how do you
let's just start there. Phyllis talked about being still and examining your feelings. There's so many people who acknowledge this directly to me. So they're afraid. You hit it.
It's a fair forest. It's a deep, wrong forest.
Yeah. Am I hearing that Black people, that we could use some therapy? Meaning, is that here? Yes, and if we need it, let's destigmatize it right here, right now. It sounds, from everything I've heard, we could use some therapy.
And think about it. If we were to really confront all of the things in our lives, I mean, it's fearful. If we were to sit down and confront racism, white supremacy in a meaningful way, and we have examples of people who have and how they've perished, but it's real. So acknowledging the fear is the first step. We are condemned to choose. I mean, here we all have a life. Each of us has to decide each moment of each day, what am I going to do with this life? Am I going to engage in, useful activity? Or am I going to spend so many hours per day doing nothing constructive? And this society is set up for that. You can watch TV, you can watch movies all day long.
Oh,
but I'm saying it's set up.
Right. And the way that I kind of cope with this, and it's probably unique, I really look at all of this from a spiritual lens. I believe on some level I chose this go round. I chose it. Yes, that's how I see it. I chose it because of the lessons it was going to teach me as a spiritual being, so that I can keep evolving. And even whether that may work for some, that may not work for all, for me, because that way I handle my Blackness as a joy, as a gift. Right. It's a gift in this life for me to be this Black woman. And I think just thinking about it, that changes how you're going to respond to life. Yeah, absolutely. It changes it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, go ahead, Tracy. Mm-hmm.
Now, I was going to say, I agree with your point of view. The idea of choosing, that you chose, gives you a certain level of autonomy. You see that we're talking the same language, although we may be using different terms. Mm-hmm. But if you decided that I was going to come back as a Black woman at this particular time in the history of the nation, and I was going to be conscious of the experience, that in that experience, I get to decide moment by moment how I'm going to deal with this experience that I chose for my soul or my spirit, right? Depending upon your belief system. But that still affords you autonomy.
Right.
You don't feel victimized, which then can give you a certain level of freedom to choose. So I don't think spirituality is in conflict with the notion of psychological autonomy. I think that they are, kissing cousins. And I think anything that affords us the opportunity to be in charge of ourselves is in line with some of the ideas that we're talking.
So if there was something that you could say to brothers right now to destigmatize getting help, what would those words be? What would it be? How can we persuade or nudge or manipulate, whatever it is?
To say something that's going to be the magic bullet, I don't think that's the way to go. But I think creating space where men can come and talk with trained professionals, not just trained professionals, but people who love Black people and people who have a historical, who understand the history of us and who have been well-versed in the art of listening. That's the approach we need to create, because there's got to be, engagement. How you got to engage people. Engagement means I'm present as a subject. I'm present and I understand and I'm curious and I'm listening and I have empathy. So again, I go back to the idea of Black people taking responsibility for bringing this service to our to get together, create a consortium or something where we go and we talk about this service. We have to bring it to them. We have to bring what we have to offer to them.
I have to say, we have gone past time, but this was so engaging that I didn't want to stop, quite honestly. So with that, Dr. Tracy Norris, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. We're going to have you back on because this topic is very hot and we need to continue to drill down on this. So thank you so much, Tracy. And to all my Brooklyn Savvy panelistas, thank you. And we will see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.